Well, that was interesting. Hey guys, it's me, Helena. Welcome back to the channel where we talk all about astrocartography, locational astrology, astro mapping, and whatever else I want to talk about. And today I really want to talk about the importance of community in astrology and also the importance of protecting and defending astrology in the years to come. Just recently, we had an election this year. And I have publicly said in the last video I posted here, 2 videos before, that I was wrong and that I predicted that Kamala Harris would become the next president. A year ago, I made a video on Donald Trump's chart and the striking correlation between his chart and the transits for the United States in 2025. Not to mention that he's entering the biggest peak of his life starting in April 25. I have full videos on this. You can find the full record and documentation in my playlist, the Political Predictions playlist. But I have to say, since the election, not only have I gotten a lot of support and love and kind words from emails, I just want to thank you all for personally reaching out to me. Your words really just light up this Leo moon's heart. So thank you for your support and kindness. I really appreciate your love. And also I've gotten an onslaught of hate, threats via email. And because of that, I had to turn off the comments on one of my recent videos, the recent video that I made on the predictions of the election. And it is important as a public figure, as a creator that is putting myself vulnerably on the internet and has so since 2015, that I protect my mental health and that I protect my sanity by not seeing hateful attacks and rhetoric toward me. There's a difference between criticizing someone and telling them how they can improve and do better versus attacking someone. Projection is one thing, but attack me? Hateful speech and rhetoric? You are blocked. You are blocked. And also, I now have an assistant that monitors all my comments here on YouTube now because I clearly can't read these comments because y'all are mean, y'all are hateful. And so now we have to do double duty of someone monitoring my email inbox and someone monitoring the comments here. This is not dishonesty. This is not lack of integrity. This is self-preservation and protection of my mental health and the mental well-being of my family and my private life. So yeah, if you're upset that I'm restricting comments, well, sorry. Now that I've gotten all that out of the way, let's talk about today's topic, which is about the importance of community in astrology and also the importance of defending and protecting astrology. Saturn and Neptune are both in Pisces, making a conjunction. This is a time of the divine arts, astrology, psychic abilities, tarot, Reiki, all of these things being under scrutiny with Saturn's presence with Neptune in Pisces. This is an ongoing story that is going to get pretty loud once it all enters Aries, when this conjunction moves into Aries. This is something that I've been preparing for at least a year now. This is something I've been watching play out over the last year. We've seen a lot of astrologers that have been doing astrology for years and are now denouncing it and saying it's demonic and the devil and all this, and they're turning to Christianity and traditional religion. We're starting to see fights break out within the astrology community. Sidereal versus tropical, whole sign versus Placidus. There is this ongoing fighting that is simmering quietly in the background right now. And it's been growing and growing this whole year. And I've been watching it and observing silently. Now, when all this moves into Aries, it's gonna get louder. It's gonna get more fired, more external, more active, more aggressive. I am concerned about this. As astrologers, it's really important that we defend this ancient practice of symbolism, of reading and interpreting symbolism and the archetypes that the planets represent, whether it be through transits and traditional predictive astrology, or hey, maybe if you're more the psychological route, protecting and defending psychological astrology and modern astrology. Whatever your preference is, whatever your house system is, that is all fine. And I am such a big believer in you do you. Follow the astrology practices that light you up. But we have also got to connect together as a community and not tear each other down and hurt one another. Without giving too much away, I recently went to a New York City meetup. My first time going to an astrology meetup in person. I went to this astrology meetup. I was so excited. Literally, I was so excited about it all day long. My first time meeting community with astrologers in person. And I've wanted to go to NORWAC for years. I have all the recordings. I've purchased all of the past NORWAC conferences and listened to all of it, but I've never gone to an actual conference before. And I've dreamed of going. Small meetup astrology group. There was a wonderful presentation from an astrologer that I really love and respect and admire, although unshaming Saturn. And she's all about unshaming the planets. And God, her energy is just so lovely. She's so elevated. I'm such a fan of her and her work and everything that she represents and everything that she does. But I have to say, being in that room with all these astrologers, this astrologer was talking about unshaming a planet. And there were all these people in the room that were shaming one another, criticizing one another over the words they used. It really unsettled me being at this meetup. I left the minute the doors open. I ran out the door. Even though there were all these astrologers that I wanted to meet, I wanted to stay after and connect with everyone in person. But the energy in the room was so tense and condemning and criticizing and dramatic and overly emotional and reactive. And let's be real, the election had just happened, so I get it. The election just happened. We're all feeling a little off. I understand. However, we're at a meetup about unshaming zodiac signs, and what are you doing? You're shaming people for the words that they're using. And so I've been thinking a lot over this last week since that meetup. What does this mean about the astrology community? What does this mean about people feeling safe as astrologers to talk about astrology without condemnation, without shame? And it's interesting watching the room when I was at that meetup, all the people that felt so uncomfortable. I was just watching everyone's reaction. And people felt so uncomfortable and so unsafe and so shamed and so on edge. And I walked out of that meeting thinking, is this what the astrology community is like? Since being out and putting myself out there on the internet and being a public astrologer, which I announced publicly in fall of 2021. I've been doing astrology since 2011 and learning about astrology, but I could never out myself. And so it took a lot of courage for me to come out as an astrologer in 2021. And it is my life's work, and I'm just at the beginning. I'm still a new professional astrologer. I'm 30 years old. I've got my life ahead of me. I've got a lot of important work to do in this field, specifically with locational astrology and astrocartography. This is my life's mission, and this is my life's work. And one other thing that's come up for me is to empower astrologers to be who they are, to be brave, to be courageous, to defend and protect astrology. That is something I've really fallen in love with. And one of the best ways that you can protect and defend astrology is, one, do not cast shame on other people, whether it's for what house system they use or what system they use in astrology, or whether or not they got a prediction wrong, which, by the way, I just want to say, a lot of astrologers got this one right. I think 30% of astrologers got this prediction right for the election recently, but they've gotten other elections wrong. It's a 50-50 chance. And as I've said in many videos, both charts were very, very strong. Yes, I thought Kamala had a slightly better chance at becoming the next president, and I was wrong in my interpretation of the chart. Does that mean that astrology is wrong, or that it doesn't work, or that it's a scam? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But there will be people out there, those after this election, who are now not believing in it because 70% of professional astrologers got this prediction wrong. It is not the astrologer's fault. It is not someone's fault because I see the themes that are coming up in the coming years with this Saturn-Neptune ingress into Aries, this makes me cautious and worried. The biggest concern on my mind right now, how can I protect astrology during this time? How can I protect astrology and protect astrologers and empower astrologers and make sure we are feeling courageous despite what is happening right now collectively? And it's just gonna get louder as all of this change happens from water to earth to air to fire, okay? Like we're entering a new era. We're entering a brand new cycle of the world and the United States, all of it. And so we're all gonna be feeling more energetic and fired up as we get Uranus and Gemini and Neptune and Saturn into Aries. Also, Pluto just moved into Aquarius, like air fire time, okay? It's very external oriented. But my biggest question has been, how can I make sure I'm protecting astrology during this time? Because so many astrologers have gotten this prediction wrong, because so many astrologers are being attacked right now, not just me, a lot of people are, a lot of astrologers are. How can I ensure that we're number one, most important priority, protecting astrology? It's not about us. How can we protect astrology? That is the most important thing. And so one of the ways that you can do this, one of the ways that you can defend and protect astrology and prepare for battle. Hello, my Mars is in Aries, I'm always preparing for battle. Start reading ancient literature. Start learning traditional astrology. Learn the foundations, the roots of the history of astrology. I recommend number one book, Hellenistic Astrology, The Study of Fate and Fortune by Chris Brennan. One of my favorite sections of this entire book is the history of astrology in the beginning. I would say page 1 to page 164. 164 pages. Learn the history of astrology. Learn the foundations of why astrology was used and what it does. Another book I highly recommend is Cosmos and Psyche by Richard Tarnas. I have this book somewhere. It's somewhere in this, or it's in there. I have so many books. With world events. Very good book. I also recommend Mark Jones, The Soul Speaks, for therapy and like how to talk to people about astrology, you know, that sense of creating a compassionate and empathetic space as a counselor, as a practicing astrologer. The Soul Speaks by Mark Jones. My favorite astrologer is Cam White. Shout out to Cam White, he's a great astrologer. I'll include his link down below, along with Chris Brennan's channel as well. He posted an Instagram post recently the other day about like his top favorite texts, like ancient texts on astrology and the foundations of astrology. Get all those books. I haven't read all of them. I gotta like order all of them because it's on my to-do list for this winter. Rhetorius the Egyptian, which was translated from the Greeks by James Holden. These are such great books to prepare yourself about why was astrology used, what are the foundational parts of it, what are the patterns in history and cycles that we can look back on so that when astrology is under fire, how can we protect it and show the patterns, the cycles? That's what astrologers do. One of the things I've been also thinking about since this election has been psychological astrology versus predictive traditional astrology. And one of the things I've noticed from a lot of astrologers that I have looked up to in the past, but now I'm like, I don't know if I want to follow these people anymore, is a lot of psychological astrologers have been throwing traditional astrologers under the bus and saying like, we shouldn't be using astrology for transit work. We shouldn't be using astrology to predict things. That's not what astrology is used for. It's used for psychological counseling. No, it's not. It's not. That's not the foundational reason why we use astrology at the beginning of all of this. Like, since the beginning, we have been using astrology for farming, for predicting droughts, for predicting famine, for predicting the downfall of kings. That's literally what astrology has been used for. I know that in these modern day and age, we just see everything through this psychological, emotional lens. I get it. Neptune's in Pisces. I get it. I get it. There's something really important and valuable about traditional astrology, about Hellenistic astrology, about making predictions and warnings and talking about the things that we can look forward to and prepare for as well. There is something valuable about all of that, and to deny that astrology is not used for those things or that it shouldn't be used by those things, according to these psychological modern astrologers on TikTok and Instagram, No, you're just doing a different system, and to each their own. And let's celebrate one another for being different, for having different styles of doing things, for approaching astrology in different ways. Let's not say that one way is better than another, or one system or approach to astrology is better than another. Pick your lane and go forth and prosper. Like, I am right here cheering all of you on, regardless of what system or house you use. It's fascinating to me how, since the election, astrology has come under fire, astrologers have come under fire, and even by fellow astrologers. We need to come together, guys. It's like we've completely forgotten how fringe and kind of outcasty astrology is. It is one of those taboo, weird things that people, don't like. Most people, most mainstream do not like astrology. They think it's silly. I have so many friends and family, most of the people in my life think astrology doesn't work or is not serious or it's silly. And a lot of people who are astrologers, they can't be friends with people like that. I can because I can separate things and I can look at things objectively. Just because I feel a certain way doesn't mean you have to feel this way or that you have to believe this certain way. It's just really sad, honestly, to see how much bias, how much emotional reactivity and inability to look at things objectively and get the bigger picture people are acting right now. And that's one of the things that I'm really excited for going forward in these coming years. Yes, we've got hard transits. We've got major difficult transits coming up for the United States and the world. However, this does not negate the fact that there are going to be great things too. A person can be confident in their predictions. Does not mean that they're always going to be right. I thought he was going to win a year ago based on just looking at his transits and the transits for the United States coming up in 2025. I was like, I think he's going to win. So the first video I made on this was that video. I'll include it right here. And when I really went deep on every technique I could find and I compared Kamala Harris and Donald Trump's chart, I was like, wow, I think Kamala Harris has this slight advantage to win this. And I was confident in that because of other techniques, other advanced techniques that I used. However, I think one of the things that we astrologers can learn from and improve upon for the future, because again, if you're going to commit to this work, commit to the long game. Commit to the long game. This world needs you. This work needs you. We need more astrologers to protect, defend, study, research, go deep, and bring this work to more people. It's important. But if you're gonna do this work, I advise you to always remember the big picture. Because as astrologers, and I made this mistake with the recent election, I went so deep on the details that I forgot to see the big picture. Remember, the US is having its Uranus return next year, and Trump's chart is very connected to that. The thing about being an astrologer, though, is that there's multiple ways you can interpret that. You could interpret that as, oh, he's gonna win and he's gonna lead the country through this Uranus return. Or you could also interpret that as, because there is gonna be war themes coming up, civil unrest, civil revolution themes coming up, and I've talked about this a million times in all my videos, but you could also interpret that as, oh, Trump's not gonna win, and he might create a new party or a new system with his audience and his support. Because again, I have said Jupiter's on his sun in the 11th house on the North Node. This is massive success, massive support from his audience and his fan base. He's getting massive support. But I could have seen that as, oh, he's not winning, but he's still gonna have all this success and he might create a new thing. And there might be civil unrest because the two parties are clashing in a major way because he doesn't win. This whole election is so not cut and dry. It's not yes, no, it's not he's gonna win, he's not gonna win. It's interpretation, it's nuance. And the thing about astrologers is we can't know exactly what's gonna happen. No astrologer can do that. And I've said this in multiple videos, but people forget. People put astrologers on these pedestals and they think that we're these all-knowing crystal ball psychics that can see the future and how everything is gonna play out. That's not what astrology is. That's not what we do. That's not how this works. And yet, if you're new to my channel and you've seen 1 or 2 videos, you're just gonna project all that on me and think that we as astrologers are all knowing when we're studying symbols. We're making interpretations based on those symbols. We're reading charts and we're interpreting them. Patterns, cycles, that's what we're doing. Astrology is the art of interpretation. So again, we could see that Jupiter on the sun with the North Node and say, and also that Uranus on Trump's MC, and say, okay, there's some unexpected, chaotic things happening with his career, but it looks like he's getting a lot of support. Does that mean he wins or loses? There's nuance to it. There's a lot more at play. And that's why as astrologers, we have to remember big picture. Sometimes we get so sucked into the details of all these techniques, progressions, solar arcs, primary directions, zodiacal releasing, annual perfections, many of which I just mentioned I used to compare the 2 charts for both candidates, right? But sometimes you need to see the bigger picture. What's going on in 25? What's going on in 26? How is the US changing? How is that corresponding with these candidates' charts? And so that's my advice to astrologers is don't get so sucked into the details that you forget to see the bigger picture in relation to a country, in relation to huge groups of people, the collective. This is much bigger than just one person winning. It's one thing to make a prediction for someone who's just living their life and like not on the world stage and not having millions of followers and that connecting with the United States birth chart, right? Like these are major things here, right? So that was something I learned, was the big picture. And one of the things that I learned from this big picture perspective is Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius. Right after this election, just recently, Pluto entered Aquarius. Now, some people could see that as, oh, Kamala Harris is winning. And it's like this new energy for politics, like the first woman president. Pluto in Aquarius, that's very much a new, exciting, innovative thing, progress, right? The thing is, you could also see it the other way with Trump becoming president. Trump's cabinet picks that he has made recently in the last few weeks, it's very Pluto in Aquarius. Elon Musk, very Pluto in Aquarius. All these people he's been picking, RFK Jr., huge symbol of Pluto in Aquarius. Because Aquarius is about the outsider. There's this energy of being kind of different or fringe or anti-establishment, anti what's been done. So do you see as astrologers how this is the art of interpretation? Like it could go either way. And so that's where seeing the big picture and also looking back at transits, I find to be even more helpful than making predictions for the future. This is something that I love about the Astrology Podcast with Chris Brennan is every month, like Austin Coppock and Chris Brennan, which I've been a fan of that podcast and that YouTube channel, all the courses since 2019. I've taken like that podcast and that YouTube channel got me through COVID. It got me through lockdown. Literally, that's like what I leaned on every day on all my walks and being at home for hours every day, like learning about cycles with that podcast has been really helpful. And so if you are an astrologer, I always recommend that podcast because you can learn a lot from it. But that's why I really like that podcast is because they look back and they reflect back on how the transits played out. And that's something that I want to be learning from going forward is instead of making predictive predictions publicly on YouTube, I want to start looking back more, reflecting back on how that played out. Because as astrologers, we can see exactly, it's amazing when you start learning astrology and you start paying attention to the news and what happens every day when a certain transit happens. That's where the magic really is because you're like, oh my God, this stuff works. This is crazy. This is wild. And I do this in my own personal life. I do this for my husband's chart. I track his transits, you know? I do this with my friend, you know? I do this for my clients. It's like being able to look back on your life and see how things actually played out. The thing is, when we're making predictions, we can't be concrete about that because again, astrology is the interpretation of archetypes and symbolism. And that's why I really recommend watching that video by S.J. Anderson of, you know, is this really the highest and best good of doing astrology? As astrologers, one of the ways that we can protect and defend astrology is by one, standing behind it, reading the ancient texts, but also not making hard and fast predictions publicly on the internet, because there's a 50-50 chance you're gonna get it wrong. And that's gonna give astrology a bad name, and we can't do that. That is the most important thing to protect. That is the number one most important thing to protect, is astrology itself, the work of astrology. And so I leave this information with you to inspire you, to empower you, and also to remember the most important big picture thing, which is protect astrology. And this can mean maybe we're not making hard and fast predictions about political elections, which I do want to mention. When I started making those videos on the election, it was just a fun experiment for me. You know, I was having fun, like, wow, would I be able to predict this election? Could I do that through astrology? And so I posted a video a year ago about Donald Trump's chart, and I was like, this might be fun. Had no idea it would get so many views. Every single video I post about the election has gotten so many views. And so it encouraged me, because so many people would leave like comments saying that I helped them get through the election, or I helped them get through it, or just like saying that they learned a lot from me. And so it kept motivating me to post more videos. But I do want to reiterate that the whole reason I started was, it was this act of experimentation, of data collecting and learning more about astrology as the election played out, and watching the transits and watching how they affected the charts of these candidates. And it was fun for me to do that. And it's interesting how it's become, and I've attracted this hateful audience of people, when the whole purpose and the whole intention behind why I wanted to make those videos in the first place was to have fun and be an astrologer and data collect and learn. But we're in divisive times, my friends. The world's about to change in huge ways that we can't even imagine. And that's why I'm not even gonna make predictions anymore about this, because there's so many ways it could play out. In bad ways, in good ways, in unpreferable ways, in preferable ways. And so it's important to remain grounded, to observe, to look back on the transits, to protect astrology, to read the ancient texts, to go deeper and actually read books. Like, I just got this book called Mastering Geopolitical Prediction, Applied Mundane Astrology Using Astro Mapping and Astrocartography by Bill Meridian. So I just got this book. I'm really excited to read it. Locational indicators, ACG maps, and phenomena charts. Ooh, I'm so excited. So I just got this book. This is gonna be my reading for December. But it's important to read, to go deeper, to not just take social media and YouTube and TikTok. This video is for astrologers, to empower you and to remind you why this work matters, because this work changes lives. It helps a lot of people. We give a lot of good to the world by being of service to the world. But again, we've got to remember the bigger picture, which is to protect astrology, especially in these times that we're about to enter. And especially in community with fellow astrologers. We need to protect each other, and also not shame one another and not attack one another. Honestly, that meetup I went to, I learned a lot, and I'm still sitting with it, and I'm still processing what I learned from that experience. And when I have more things to share, which I will, I have a project that's gonna be coming out in Capricorn season. When Capricorn season begins, I'm gonna be coming out with a program to help you become more unshakable and untouchable as an astrologer. Because if there's something I've learned through this experience, it's how to remain unshakable. I've learned a lot about this through this whole experience being on YouTube. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're feeling peace in your heart. Remember the present moment. Stay grounded, stay present, drink water, eat food, take care of yourself, rest. And I will see you in the next video, my friends. I'm always here. I'm gonna continue to be here. I've got a long career ahead of me, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. I'll see you in the next video, my friends. Have a magical day and happy astro travels.